There is a specific date when you can stop saving for retirement, not when you retire, not when you quit your job, just when you stop saving. After that date, you never put another dollar into your retirement account, not because you ran out of money, because you don't have to anymore. Your existing balance will grow, on its own, without your help, into everything you need. For some of you watching this right now, that date is less than 5 years away. You just don't know it yet. This is called Coast Fire. And by the time this video is over, you're going to know three things: exactly what your number is, whether you've already hit it, and what your life looks like the day after you do. Before I explain anything else, I want to give you the formula, right now, in the first 2 minutes. Because the single biggest mistake financial education makes is making you wait for the tool. So here it is. Step 1. Decide how much money you want to spend each year in retirement. Not your current salary, what you actually want. For most people, that number is somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000 a year. Pick a number, write it down. Step 2. Multiply that number by 25. That's your retirement target. If you want $50,000 a year, $50,000 times 25 equals $1.25 million. If you want $60,000 a year, $60,000 times 25 equals $1.5 million. If you want $80,000 a year, $80,000 times 25 equals $2 million. Simple. Done. Step 3. Go to any Coast Fire calculator. I'll link the one I use in the description. Enter your current savings, your age, and that retirement target number. It will tell you one thing: how much you need saved right now, today, so that compound interest alone carries you to your retirement target by age 65. That's your Coast Fire number. Pause this video right now if you want. Run that calculation. Write down what it tells you, then come back. Because the rest of this video is going to tell you exactly what to do with that number, whether you've already hit it, whether you're close, or whether you feel like you're nowhere near it. In that last group, I especially want you to stay, because your number might surprise you. Here's what Coast Fire actually means in plain terms. Imagine your savings as a line on a graph. In normal retirement planning, that line goes up every year until you retire. You contribute, it grows, you contribute more, it grows more, for 40 years. Coast Fire says, what if the line didn't have to go up the whole time? What if you saved hard, really hard, for a specific window of time, and then stopped? And your existing balance, left alone, compounded on its own, became everything you needed. The flat part of that line, that's your life, your actual life, not deferred until 65. And the curved part, that's compound interest doing the work you used to do. Most people never experience this because they never define a finish line. They just keep saving, indefinitely, because the number keeps moving. A few years ago, I was talking to someone I'll call Marcus. Marcus is 36 years old, average income his whole career. No inheritance, no windfall, nothing unusual in his financial history except one thing. At 32, Marcus hit Coast Fire. He told me this the same way you'd tell someone you finished a book you'd been reading. Just, yeah, I think I hit Coast Fire. No celebration, no announcement, just a fact. I asked him when he realized it. He said, I don't know, I wasn't counting. I'm going to tell you Marcus's full story later in this video, but I want you to have his face in your head for the next few minutes. Because the math I'm about to show you is the same math Marcus ran at 27 years old that told him he was 5 years away from never having to save again. It looked impossible when he first saw it. It wasn't. Let me show you three people, same retirement target, $1.25 million. That's $50,000 a year at a 4% withdrawal rate. Same assumed return, 7% annually after inflation. That's the conservative historical average for a diversified index fund portfolio. Different starting points. Person A starts at 25 with $15,000 saved to hit Coast Fire by age 35, meaning they can stop contributing entirely at 35 and let compound interest carry them to $1.25 million by 65. They need to save approximately $13,000 a year for 10 years. Total amount contributed, $130,000, plus the initial $15,000. Call it $145,000. They stop at 35. They never contribute again. By 65, $1.36 million. Person B starts at 35 with nothing. Same target, same return assumption. To hit Coast Fire by 45, a 10-year window, they need to save approximately $22,000 a year. Total contributed $220,000. They stop at 45. They never contribute again. By 65, $1.28 million. Person C starts at 45 with nothing. Same target. To hit Coast Fire by 55, they need to save approximately $50,000 a year. Total contributed $500,000. By 65, $1.38 million. Now look at those three numbers together. Person A contributed $145,000 and retired with $1.36 million. Person C contributed $500,000 and retired with $1.36 million. Person A and Person C end up in almost exactly the same place. Person A saved one-third as much money. Person A had 30 years of financial freedom that Person C didn't have. Every 5 years you delay starting, the amount you need to save roughly doubles. This is not a motivational statement. This is arithmetic. Compound interest does not negotiate. Which brings me back to David. I've spent 14 years getting better at the math and worse at finishing. That's a direct quote. I want you to remember it. The person who said it, I'll call him David, is 48 years old. He has been saving for retirement since he was 34. He has a healthy account balance. He has read every major personal finance book published in the last decade. He understands compound interest better than most financial advisors. He has not hit Coast Fire, not because the math didn't work, because he never committed to a number. David is a high earner. His targets are bigger than the numbers we've been working with, but his pattern is not a high earner pattern. It shows up at $40,000 a year targets and $4 million targets identically. The arithmetic scales. The trap doesn't care what income bracket you're in. 6 months ago, David's retirement target was $3.2 million. He was close. He was maybe 2 years away. Then he read an article about healthcare costs in retirement. He recalculated. New number, $3.8 million. Then inflation picked up. He recalculated. New number, $4.1 million. Last month, he read something about sequence of returns risk. He recalculated. New number, he's not sure yet. David's problem is not his savings rate. His problem is not his investment choices. His problem is not his income. David's problem is this: he's delegated the final decision to a feeling, and feelings are infinitely movable. And it costs him, not abstractly, concretely. In 2019, David was offered a role at a smaller company. Less travel, closer to his kid's school, a creative scope his current job didn't allow. It paid $18,000 less. He spent 2 weeks running the math. The math worked. He turned it down anyway because the target had moved again that month and he didn't feel ready. A colleague of his took the job. They are still there. They are, by every account David has of them, happier than David is. He told me about it the same evening he told me the 14 years quote. Same conversation. They are the same story. There is no number David can hit that will feel like enough because he has never decided what enough means. He keeps asking the market, the news, the inflation reports, the healthcare projections to tell him when he's done. They never will. David is not unusual. David is the default outcome of standard retirement planning advice, which tells you to save as much as possible for as long as possible. And then, somewhere, somehow, you'll know when you're done. You won't, not without a number you've committed to in advance. Coast Fire forces that commitment. It says, this is the target. When I hit this, the saving is over, not negotiable. Not subject to recalculation when a new article comes out. Done. Marcus made that commitment at 27. David never did. That's the only difference between them. Let me tell you Marcus's full story now. Marcus grew up in a normal household. His parents were not wealthy. He did not study finance in school. He studied graphic design. He graduated with $22,000 in student loans and a starting salary of $38,000 a year. He did not read about Coast Fire until he was 27. He found it in a comment thread of all places. Someone had posted a calculator link and written, "Run this. It might change how you think about your 30s." Marcus ran it. At 27, with $18,000 saved, the calculator told him he needed approximately $95,000 in his retirement account to be coast ready by 32. He had $18,000. He needed $95. He had 5 years. Most people look at that gap and feel defeated. Marcus looked at it and felt something different. He felt like it was a problem with a specific answer. He ran the math backwards. To get from $18,000 to $95,000 in 5 years, assuming 7% growth, he needed to contribute roughly $1,100 a month. His take-home pay at 27 was about $2,600 a month. That meant saving 42% of his take-home income for 5 years. He did not do anything exotic to make this work. He moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 roommates instead of 1. He kept a car he'd been planning to replace for 3 more years. He stopped eating out except for 1 meal a week, which he kept as a non-negotiable because he said eliminating it entirely made him miserable in a way that was unsustainable. He was not perfect. Year 2, he had an unexpected medical expense and contributed $800 that month instead of $1,100. He did not recalculate his entire target. He just contributed $1,100 the following month and moved on. Here's what his contribution history actually looked like. Year 1, $13,200 contributed. Year 2, $11,400 contributed. That was the medical expense year. Year 3, $14,800 contributed. Year 4, $13,900 contributed. Year 5, $15,200 contributed. Total contributed over 5 years, $68,500. Plus growth on existing savings and on contributions, his balance at 32 was $112,000. His Coast Fire number at 32, recalculated for a $55,000 annual retirement target, $108,000. He had crossed it. He was 32, 1 year later than his original plan. It didn't matter. He told me he didn't celebrate. He updated the spreadsheet, closed his laptop, and went for a walk. I didn't really feel anything, he said. I thought I would, but it just felt like done, like finishing a project. Now here is what actually changed. At 33, Marcus's company offered him a role that paid 30% less than his current position. The new role was more creative, more aligned with what he actually wanted to do. Under normal financial circumstances, carrying a retirement obligation that required sustained high savings, he would have said no. He said yes. At 34, a close friend was going through a difficult period and asked Marcus if he could come stay for a few weeks. Marcus took 2 weeks off, unpaid, and went. At 35, his grandmother's health began to decline. He flew home 4 times that year. He was present for things that, under a different financial structure, he would have had to miss. None of these decisions were dramatic. Marcus did not quit his job and move to Bali. He did not start a podcast about financial freedom. He is not, by any conventional measure, living an extraordinary life. He is living his life, the one he actually wanted, with the people who actually matter to him, doing work that actually engages him. At 36, Marcus started a small woodworking business on the side, not because he needed the money, because he wanted to make things with his hands. He makes furniture for people he likes. He takes commissions from strangers sometimes. He turns down commissions from people who seem difficult. He can do this because the revenue has no obligation attached to it. I asked Marcus once whether he thought about his retirement account. He said, "Not really. I check it maybe twice a year. It's doing what it's supposed to do." "What's it supposed to do?" I asked. "Grow," he said, "without me." That's what Coast Fire actually looks like in practice. Not a dramatic exit from your career, not a radical lifestyle change. Just a retirement account that no longer needs your attention, and a life that, because of that, gets more of it. Standard retirement planning asks one question: when will I have enough money? It's a reasonable question, but it's the wrong one. Because enough money is a number that lives in the future, and the future keeps changing, and so the number keeps changing, and so the answer is always, not yet. David has been answering that question for 14 years. The answer has never been yes. Coast Fire asks a different question: when will I know I'm okay? Those two questions sound similar. They are not similar. When will I have enough money puts the decision in the market's hands. It depends on returns, on inflation, on healthcare projections, on whatever article you read last Tuesday. When will I know I'm okay puts the decision in your hands. You decide what okay means. You commit to it. And when you hit it, the answer is yes. Not maybe, not probably, yes. This is what Marcus meant when he said his retirement was already handled. Not that he had accumulated infinite wealth. Not that he had solved every future uncertainty, just that at 32 years old, his retirement had become a fact instead of a hope. Every financial decision Marcus makes from 32 onward is made from a position of security rather than scarcity. The pay cut at 33, possible. The 2 weeks unpaid at 34, possible. The flights home at 35, possible. The woodworking business at 36, possible. None of these required wealth, they required the absence of a particular kind of pressure. The pressure of not knowing whether you're going to be okay. That pressure is what most people are carrying, quietly, every day. It shows up as the inability to take the interesting job because it pays less. The inability to say no to overtime because you're not sure you can afford to. The inability to be fully present with the people you love because some part of your mind is always running the retirement calculation in the background. Coast Fire doesn't give you more money, it gives you back that part of your mind. Maybe it looks like taking a job that pays $15,000 less but requires no travel, so you're home for dinner every night. Maybe it looks like starting a small business that might fail, because the failure doesn't threaten your retirement anymore. Maybe it just looks like sleeping better, checking your investment account twice a year instead of twice a week. Feeling, for the first time, like the future is something that's going to be okay rather than something you have to outrun. That's the middle, between working yourself to exhaustion and retiring at 35. Coast Fire doesn't demand the extreme. It just handles the retirement question completely, permanently, irrevocably, so that every other question gets to be about what you actually want. I want to talk directly to anyone watching this who is in their 50s, because everything I've said so far has been built around people who started early. And if you're 52, or 54, or 57, there's a version of you that checked out of this video 10 minutes ago. Because you assume the math doesn't apply anymore. It does, it just looks different. I want to tell you about Patricia. Patricia is 54. She works in hospital administration, has for 22 years. She raised 2 kids largely on her own after a divorce in her late 30s that disrupted what had been a reasonably on-track financial plan. For most of her 40s, retirement savings was the thing she intended to prioritize once things settled down. Things settled down slowly. Her kids needed things. The divorce had costs she hadn't anticipated. By 50, she had $180,000 in her retirement account and a quiet, persistent dread that she had run out of time. She came across Coast Fire the way most people do, accidentally. A coworker mentioned it. She went home and ran the numbers and was, in her words, ready to be told I was screwed. Here's what she actually found. Patricia's planned retirement age was 67, the age she becomes eligible for full Social Security benefits. That gave her 17 years of compound growth on her existing balance, even if she stopped contributing entirely. $180,000 growing at 7% annually for 17 years equals approximately $568,000. Patricia's retirement spending target was $42 a year. Her projected Social Security benefit at 67 was approximately $22,000 a year. That meant she needed her portfolio to generate $20,000 a year. At a 4% withdrawal rate, $20,000 a year requires a portfolio of $500,000. She needed $500,000. She was projected to have $568,000 without contributing another dollar. Patricia's number depends partly on Social Security continuing to pay out at projected levels. She built a small buffer into her contributions for that reason. The point is not that Social Security is guaranteed. The point is that even accounting for that uncertainty, the math still worked. She had already passed her Coast Fire number with margin. She had already done it. She had no idea. For 4 years, she had been carrying a dread that was mathematically baseless. Patricia did not stop contributing entirely. She kept contributing at a reduced rate, partly for the Social Security buffer, partly because she'd built the habit and didn't want to lose it. But the relationship she had with her financial life changed completely. She told me, I had been bracing for an answer that was going to ruin me. And the answer was, I'm fine. I've been fine. I just didn't know. If you are in your 50s and you have not run this calculation, I want you to run it before you do anything else today. You may be where Patricia was. You may be carrying a fear that the math is going to dissolve in 20 minutes. And even if you're not, even if the math shows you have a real gap, knowing the gap exactly is better than the dread of not knowing. Because a gap is a problem with a solution. Dread is a problem that just sits there. Here's what I want you to actually do. 1. Today, not this weekend, today. Decide what number you want to spend each year in retirement. Be honest about it. Not what you think you should want, what you actually want. Write that number down. 2. Multiply it by 25. That's your retirement target. 3. Go to a Coast Fire calculator, link in the description, and enter your age, your current savings, and that retirement target. Read what it tells you. 4. Whatever the calculator tells you, do not negotiate with the number. Do not recalculate it next week with slightly different assumptions. Do not move it because of an article you read. Write it down, date it, put it somewhere you can see it. 5. If you've already hit it, and some of you have, and you don't know yet, give yourself permission to stop. Stop contributing if you want to, or keep contributing if it feels good. But understand, the obligation is over. You crossed the line. The line was real. 6. If you haven't hit it yet, calculate exactly how much you need to save monthly to hit it by your target date. Set up the automatic transfer, and then stop thinking about it. The thinking is the trap. Marcus didn't think about it. He just contributed every month for 5 years, and then he was done. 7. If the math shows you a gap that feels impossible, extend your timeline. 5 more years of saving can change everything. Patricia found out at 50 that she was already there. You might be closer than you think. There is a date, a specific date, when your savings stop being something you do and start being something that's already done. For some of you, it's in your 30s. For some, your 40s. For some, your 50s. For some of you, it's already passed, and you've been carrying weight you didn't need to carry. That date is not a feeling. It is not a market condition. It is not an article you'll read next week. It is a number you can calculate today, in about 10 minutes. David has been chasing that date for 14 years because he never let himself name it. Marcus named it at 27 and hit it at 32. He builds furniture now. He flies home when his grandmother needs him. Patricia found out at 54 that she had already crossed it. She stopped bracing. The math is the same for all 3 of them. The math is the same for you. The only variable is whether you commit to a number. Run the calculation today. Find your date. And then, whatever your date turns out to be, start living like it's real, because that's when life actually begins. The day you know you're going to be okay.